You're a PM on the IG Live team, and the number of viewers on Live has gone down steadily by 10%. What is going on, and what do you do? I'm here today with Titus, a PM at Meta, to do an execution-style mock interview. So Titus, can you introduce yourself to those watching?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Like Kevin said, I'm Titus. I'm a PM at Meta right now. Previously, I was a PM at PayPal, as well as a couple of startups that I've run, and just have like a background in AI and robotics. I really love like putting together the like leadership and product side of things with the engineering and deep tech side of things to create amazing new experiences for consumers. So excited to do this mock.
Awesome. Thanks, Titus. So why don't we get into it?
If you're enjoying this video, you can watch dozens more of videos like this at tryexponent.com. Check out our real interview questions with full written solutions. Over 1 million people use Exponent to ace their interviews in product management, software engineering, engineering management, machine learning, data science, and much, much more. Get started for free at tryexponent.com.
The question I'd love to ask for you today is, you're a PM on the IG Live team, and the number of viewers on Live has gone down steadily by 10%. What is going on, and what do you do?
Got it. Okay, so just to reiterate the question, I'm a PM on the Live team on Instagram. The viewers are steadily going down by 10%, and you want me to figure out what's going on and then how I would tackle it.
Exactly.
Cool. So just like as a very high level agenda, from the beginning, just to make sure that we're like pacing together, kind of in lockstep. I just want to ask a few clarifying questions. With these kind of questions, I was like to understand like what that metric actually looks like. Like I imagine looking at a dashboard, like what does that graph look like, and what are any like obvious high level correlations, and then just like voice over a bit of the product flow, some of the basic things, so we can figure out like where we dig deeper, and then go ahead and do that deeper digging until we get to a solution. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds great. So it sounds like you're going to clarify a bit, and you're going to walk through the product flow and then deep dive into what's going on. Sounds great.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. And I might take some notes in the doc just so I can like not forget anything in reference if needed. But cool. So the viewers are going down by 10% on Instagram Lives. So I guess the first clarifying question, I just want to confirm that we're talking about actual like atomic like users, accounts, and not like time spent viewing or total views or whatever.
Exactly, yes. Well,
Okay.
The primary metric you're looking at is that the number of unique users has been going down steadily by 10%.
Okay, great. And then are we looking at like a daily graph, or is it like weekly, or what does that look like? Maybe it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, we can say that it's been happening throughout the month.
Okay, got it. Throughout the month. That makes sense. And then when you say like steady and gradual, I kind of assume the graph, started at like steady state, whatever we're used to, and now over the past month, it sounds like it's been slowly declining. And today, let's say day 30 of the decline, we're at like 10% less than what it was on day one. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's a perfect linear graph,
Totally.
much like in real life, nothing is truly perfect, but it definitely follows a more gradual rather than a step function change type of decline.
Perfect. And like as of today, do we have reason to believe that decline is like continuing, or does it seem in any way like it's plateauing or recovering?
We can't tell at this moment, but our best guess is that it probably will continue to decline if we don't do something about it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And then obviously, like in the real world, Instagram Lives have been, it's been a live product for years now. But I just want to make sure we want to evaluate this question in 2024. Like Instagram has been live. This isn't like at launch or anything like that.
Exactly, yes. So consider it modern day Instagram Live with all the features that exist today if you were to pull up your phone.
Okay, great. And then the last question, I just want to make sure we're kind of aligned on here. Is this 10% decline, is it absolute or relative? So let's say like usually on a daily basis, we have 100 million Instagram accounts that view at least one reel. Is this decline like 10 million? So like an absolute like an absolute decline, or is it a decline in like the percentage, maybe 70% of people who are logging into Instagram every day usually viewed, and this now went down to 63%.
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, it relates to one of the first questions you asked around is it the time spent viewing versus the number of viewers, etc. So it is the number of accounts that is viewing lives is dropping
Right.
by 10% from what it used to be. But that likely
Okay.
impacts other metrics as well, but that's sort of our focus for today.
Okay. Great. Perfect. Okay. I think that makes sense. That helps a ton. Thank you. So just want to dive a little bit into just the user side. Like usually I would break down actual like users of Instagram. You have like viewers, creators, and like business accounts or, accounts that are posting ads. I don't know for this question, since we specified viewers, if it makes sense to break it up that way, but there is one question I want to ask, which is in terms of account type. So you can have like a normal account type that's just like a normal user. They might post, they might view, they do a little bit of everything. Or you can have like a business account, and these are like professional creators and influencers, businesses, etc. Do we see this decline equally across both account types, or is it more like specific to one or the other?
Yes, so the decrease in viewership is happening across both professional as well as regular account types.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, and I just clarified that because those different account types are probably behaving differently, and probably, a normal like viewer account is probably like consuming content a lot more than like a business account. Um, it's good to understand that. Cool, thank you. So, and then in terms of, so those are the kind of users that I think are relevant here. In terms of user flows, I think that's going to help us kind of like know where to focus a little bit going forward. So you have the lives, right? And there's different like entry points into a live video. You might get a notification. You might see it on the feed when you open up the app, or you might like navigate to a user's profile or like an account page and see that they're live, or potentially even via search. If you're searching for a specific topic, you might see like a viewer page and then like enter a live experience. Um, is this decline across all these different entry points, or is it kind of like clustered in one particular area?
Across all entry points.
Got it. It's across all entry points. Okay. Are we looking at mobile versus or web, or is this behavior again happening kind of across all the different platforms?
It's happening across the platforms, but viewers
Okay.
on Instagram are typically living on mobile,
Totally.
especially
Yeah.
for the live
Especially for
experience.
live. Yeah, definitely. Got it. That makes sense. Okay, cool. Yeah, so just to recap, we're seeing this decline like across all different entry points, different user type accounts, even different platforms. There's really like no like idiosyncratic kind of behavior we've identified yet, but it's like a pretty steady decline. So I want to dig a little bit more into kind of specifics and try to identify if there's a clustering around other higher level types of data. So things like geography or time of week, etc. So I guess like first question, are we geolocated? Do we see this decline specific to the US? Is it global? Is it like another continental country? Anything like that that we've been able to identify?
It's global in nature.
It's global. Okay, got it. Got it. So global. Okay. Um, so maybe it doesn't make sense then to dive into like specific like PR issues or like the upcoming election in the US or anything like that just yet. I'm just going to assume for now we'll put a pin in that, but if it's global, it seems like it might be a bigger issue. Since you did say it was a steady decline, I don't really think we need to go down the path of understanding, is this like a specific day of the week or specific, like, is this the weekend versus weekdays? Um, though, like, just for completeness, it doesn't, are there like bumps? I guess you did say it's not like a perfect decline, so maybe it is a relevant question. Are there any kind of like changes in this decline that we see over the weekend, during weekdays, or around like any special events or holidays that have happened in this past month?
No, it doesn't seem to be tied to any
Okay,
cadence of day.
got it. Okay, so no specific like cadence of day. Do we Are we able to identify, I mean, obviously in the real world we would, but for the purpose of like this question, the month of the year? Like I'm thinking maybe is this like before back to school or at the end of a semester for college students or things of that nature or the holidays. Is there any kind of correlation there that we think is important?
So we don't have enough data yet. It's just been happening for
Okay,
a month.
got it, got it. Okay, okay, sounds good. That makes sense. So then I think like want to dive next into um, just understanding the actual a little bit of the flow and like how like what if we've changed anything in the flow itself. Because so far it doesn't sound, I think like so far we haven't identified is this a bug or is this like a user engagement type of like behavior change that has been created for some reason or another. So I want to start triaging that a bit. So I think the first question I want to understand is, have we changed anything about how a user um, enters a live experience in terms of how a notification is presented on the lock screen or how it's presented like in the feed or anything like that? Are those entry points different at all?
Can you help me understand how you think that users enter into Instagram Live today? I know you mentioned a few earlier, but just for robustness of your investigation, what would you look like and what would you look at in terms of user flows?
Totally. I think so the big ones in my mind are notifications. So those might change in terms of even how the logo is presented, like the text in the notification. We can get to like frequency of notifications in a second. The next one would be on the feed itself. Right at the top, you have like people's stories, but I believe those like some of those can also be lives if someone is going live. And then on actual like profile pages, if I'm like navigating to a friend's profile or like a creator's profile for whatever reason, I can see that they're live and I can tap into that. So I guess my question is like in the presentment of those entry points, um, whether it's like color or the size or like the text or whatever, are any of those have any of those changed or are we running any experiments there?
So we're always running hundreds of experiments at every time, but we are not necessarily changing the appearance of any entry points
Okay,
into the live feature as it exists today.
got it. Okay, that makes sense. Um, okay, so the entry points are the same, and I guess like while we're on this topic, um, just to make sure I'm going down the right route here, is it fair to say that when we say view number of users viewing decrease, is it fair to say that that's the equivalent of like number of users entering a live experience is
That would
decreasing?
be fair. That
Okay, cool.
I, it's more so the number of users who are actively
Yep,
using the live feature, which
yep,
correlates to how often you enter.
perfect. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, Okay, so no changes in presentment. I think the next thing I want to understand then, I want to understand any changes in the opportunity for a user to even enter this live experience. So what I mean by that, I mentioned this a second ago, frequency of presentment, where this is like frequency of notifications that someone has gone live, or like the ranking of a live icon on the feed relative to like stories or things of, or even like ranking in search of like profiles that might have live videos. I want to explore that because I think if that frequency of opportunity has changed, then it would potentially make sense that a user that users are getting into the experience less often because they have less of an opportunity to do so. Any changes there? And we can go down each one specifically if you'd like, but I guess at a high level.
Can you be more specific for me?
Sure, definitely. So let's start with notifications. Have we changed our notification strategy for lives? Are we sending less notifications or even more notifications, right, which could prompt a user to opt out?
No, Instagram has not made any material changes to notification frequency within our code.
Okay, sounds good. Um, and would you say that's true of like all Instagram notifications or just specific to live? I ask that because if we're sending now all of a sudden the same amount of live notifications, but a ton of post notifications, maybe the live ones are getting like buried.
No, no changes to notification at large.
Got it. Got it. And then any changes to the way to the like ranking or the priority that live is given on the feed versus like user story badges.
No changes in the presentation or the frequency of
Yeah,
notifications.
got it. Okay, that makes sense. Um, Okay, so far we have no changes in how a user enters the experience or the opportunities for entry. I want to ask one more question about kind of competition and cannibalization, and depending on where we get with that, then we might like change to understand some more technical side of things that might point us like towards a bug. So, but going down like the cannibalization or competition, um, let's do cannibalization first. So, have we launched any products or experiments that create any kind of video form live, or maybe even not live, but any kind of like video form features or content that could potentially compete with live?
That's a great question. We're always experimenting with different video formats, and while there have been a few experiments, nothing to the extent that it would affect 10% of viewership.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think I mentioned competition. Normally, I would go down that route next potentially, but I think like one important consideration is just going back to the different user types on Instagram, and we've gone deep into viewers, and if needed, we can come back and explore bugs, like I mentioned a moment ago. But I think it's important. We've talked about the demand side essentially, but what about the supply side? It's definitely possible that views decrease for reasons. Of supply, like creators creating less content or anything of that nature. So I definitely want to understand that side a little bit. Things that could be causing behavior changes in viewers without the viewers themselves actually having different sentiment or interaction inherently with the app. So I think going just to the creator side, actually I want to kind of like triage your creator versus like business accounts slash ads. It's kind of a nuanced difference, but just understanding these two sides for the creative side. Um, the first thing I would say actually is, have we seen a decrease?
So before we get into that, Titus, actually, so tell me more why you're bunching together ads and business accounts.
That's a good question. I think, anyone can run an ad on Instagram, which is fair. I think I'm thinking of it. Maybe ads isn't the right word here. I think I'm thinking more of like, what's the purpose of your account as a user? And I think, if you're Sephora, you're a business, you have a very like a certain purpose of like selling your products and also getting deals with influencers versus if you're like a beauty influencer, you're not selling products, you're like advertising kind of or like putting out content to advertise um for other companies. So they're both companies in a way, right? But a very kind of a very different purpose and direction that they're coming from. So that's why I'm separating those two. But I think you're right. I think ads can kind of almost be across the board a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So back to your high level,
Yeah.
stepping back, tell me more about your thoughts there.
Definitely. I think um, I'll just ask at a high level from the supply side. Have we also seen a decrease in the number of accounts going live, or the number of live sessions over this period of time?
Yes, we have.
We have. Okay, great, great. So that's an interesting correlation. And I guess, do we have data to show us how that decrease has been happening? Has it been kind of like in lockstep with this viewer decrease or the same amount of decrease?
Tell me more about what that data would lead you to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would help us understand um, essentially like how much deeper we need to dig for an answer, right? Like if we see like the amount of content on the platform, the supply is decreasing almost identically, like by the same percentage every single day as our number of viewers have decreased, then that's like an extremely strong correlation. Potentially, like that's all that's happening. For some reason, less content is being created, so then we'd have to just figure out like why is less content being created, versus maybe we have a phenomena where um, the supply is decreasing by a lesser percent, but that's actually causing people to lose interest. So now we have a problem on both supply and demand side. Sure, supply has gone down, but now I'm seeing one less video a day, but now then I don't know, I just lose interest, I bounce, and that prevents me from coming back to a live experience for 2 days, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing your thoughts there. And we've seen that the number of creators on live has gone down by anywhere between 11 to 13%, so slightly more than the 10%.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that's very interesting. Um, and you said this was number of creators that have gone down or number of live sessions?
The number of live sessions.
the number of live sessions. Got it. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And then are we so digging into that a little bit more? Kind of want to understand like the account types that has happened to. Um, is this across like all account types? Is it specific to like creators or businesses or like everyday users?
So basically, it's the number of lives that have been started regardless of
Okay.
account type.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So the number of lives have gone down regardless of account type. I think, there's two different routes I'd like to go here next. I don't think this is a bug based on what we're saying. Could potentially be maybe people are trying to go live, it's like not working and they give up. We could explore that if needed. But I think two potential directions is one, potentially competition. Maybe TikTok is somehow incentivizing users to do something more on their platform, or maybe there's another live platform, YouTube or something else that's come out that's taking like creators away from us, or there's some sort of like behavior change due to an Instagram like feature change or thing of that nature.
And can you tell me what data you've gathered would lead you to believe that this could be a possibility rather than the bug route?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the bug out, like I mentioned a moment ago, that could definitely be a possibility potentially. I could see somebody trying to start a live video and it not working, and they try again, and then they just give up. And that's definitely something we can explore. And maybe if you think it makes sense, we can like go down that route first. But from a from a supply perspective, it seems almost like a little more. I almost want to say like inherent in a user who's creating a live to want to go live or not, and it seems like it would be less influenced by a bug if that makes sense, except for the case of like not being able to actually start a live. Um, does that make sense?
Sure, I'm more so interested in your rationale, and I'm
Yeah,
not guiding you in a certain direction. So you tell me where you want to go
totally,
next.
totally. I mean, I think maybe let's just explore that for 1 second. Um, do we see any? So I guess like in the case I'm describing, I think the only real bug potentially that could be creating this on the supply side is is a is a bug in like the ability to start a live or the ability to do something that's like really critical to starting a live. So I guess like I would love to understand if we see an increase in crash reports or other kind of like logs, bug logs for users who are trying to start a live video.
There are definitely always bug logs, but nothing relating to the starting of a live video.
Nothing related to the starting of a live video. Got it. Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, potentially there could be something related to the like ending of a live video, something that makes the experience frustrating, and then a user could still potentially leave and churn because of that. So I guess now as we're thinking a little bit more through it, maybe I'll just ask one more question here on the bug side. Um, During the live stream, do we see any increase in kind of interruptive behavior that could potentially be caused by bugs? So things like the app crashing while the user is going live, or the user not being able to end the live or successfully posted some sort of like lag or hiccup, an infinite spin when they try to end the video. Um, do we see that kind of like uh, bug behavior that would prevent the successful like ending of a video, I guess?
So tell me more how you might measure this or find out the data behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would want to look at probably like two or three data points. So one would be um, just like crashes during a live or like infinite scrolls while I'm streaming. So I'm streaming, all of a sudden like everything freezes or the app crashes. So I want to just look at like the kind of the bug report or the incidences of those happening. And I think the other one would be, at the end when I say, hey, I'm done, post it, in that flow, whatever that is, like two or three taps to actually post it, to end the video and post it. is there an increase in crashes or app hangs in that flow? Those are the two data points.
So when you talk about interruptive behavior, it's not necessarily from the audience, it's more so from a platform and Instagram perspective. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, just because we're talking about bugs right now.
Okay. Okay. So, no, you do not see any data around or any bug logs regarding crashes, but you do see some bug logs relating to length of lives.
To the length of the live. Okay, can
And it's
you
more so from user feedback and ticketing.
got it? Okay. Um, could you okay, so I want to understand that a little bit more. So when you say a bug log due to the length of the live from user ticketing, I guess actually let's understand that first. From the creator kind of reporting an issue or from viewers reporting an issue?
So, to clarify, bug logs typically would refer to internal tooling and more quantitative feedback, right? So you're not seeing that from there, but you are seeing it from user submitted feedback on the app.
Right.
And you are seeing it in the categories that I mentioned. And to answer your questions, it is both from creators as well as non creators.
So how much visibility and data do we have into um, like understanding what those users are complaining about? So I'm I want to understand things like, are viewers complaining that the length of the videos or of the live is too short or too long? Or are they complaining about spam? Or creators complaining about viewer spam? Or are they complaining about like actual like technologically bad experiences like the live hanging or crashing or things like that?
So you're seeing a trend amongst user supported tickets that seem to indicate that lives are shorter and stopping abruptly.
Okay, got it. So that they're shorter and they're stopping abruptly. Cool. So, I mean, particularly the stopping abruptly, that definitely sounds, it could be a behavior change, but I think abruptness generally, um, like unsmooth behavior could generally mean some sort of like a bug. So I would love to kind of like dig into that a little bit more. So the shorter behavior and then it's an abrupt stop. Um, I guess I would love. I think I want to go back a little bit to the view to the creator flow. So I'm just thinking as a creator, if I'm recording this live and then it ends abruptly, that could mean I'm ending it abruptly. I just decide I'm done. But if this is happening at such a large scale, it's unlikely that everyone's doing that. Or there could be some sort of like a crash or like a loss of connection, and these types of issues. Um, so I want to dig into. I know we like talked about a high level a bit, and let me know if you think maybe this is the wrong direction. But I want to dig into that like end flow a little bit more for the creator. Before I ask my question, do you think that makes sense based on the viewer tickets we're seeing, or not so much?
It's up to you what direction you want to take it, but I think it's a good practice to examine all parts of a user flow.
Definitely. Okay, so for the creator flow, um, I would assume that Instagram kind of logs how and when the live is ended. So in that case, do we see any changes in how the live is ended? And I know that's like a very weird amorphous question, but I think like naturally it can end by just tapping the end button. That's probably like the only natural way for it to end. Other ways it might end would be for the app to be closed, um, or for there to be some sort of a crash or even a lag that like makes the creator say, okay, it's not like worth it. I'm just going to end it because it's been lagging for like 2 minutes. Um, yeah, so let's split that out. Are there an increased number of early terminations initiated by the user tapping end end live? Um, that's the first question. So that would be like natural flow.
You're saying, is there an increase of of creators tapping end?
Yeah, like sooner than like the median um, length of live that we would expect.
No, we haven't seen that behavior of users clicking end.
Okay, okay, okay.
To clarify, we haven't seen them clicking end earlier than the
Right.
average time.
Yep. Okay. So then the next question would be like, have we seen an increase in lives that are ending? I don't want to say like automatically, but due to a crash. So imagine like a user starts a live, it goes, and then it ends, but the user never tapped the end button. So like there's no analytic log that I tapped end, but the video did in fact end. We see an increase there.
We do see an increase in that, but it is not due to crashes
Okay, it is not due
because the
to
app
crashes.
no, the app
Okay,
doesn't close. There's no bug logs. It's not due to crashes.
okay. And when you say crashes, do you also mean like a bug? I'm sorry, like an app hang, like just an infinite spinner or anything like that? You
Exactly.
do. Okay. Okay. Interesting. So there's essentially like just to summarize, there's an increase in early termination of videos, but they're not creator generated. Um, and it doesn't seem that the app is like crashing or hanging or anything like that.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe then let me just clarify my assumption of how a live can end. Is it true that a live can end only by the creator tapping end live, or are there other ways a live can end, like all viewers leaving or something like that?
There are other ways that a live can
Okay,
end.
okay, okay. Um, let's talk about that. I'm not a frequent live user. Can you help me understand what those other ways are?
Sure. So let me just say that there have been some new policies initiated at
Okay,
Instagram.
got it, got it. Okay, that makes sense. So okay, so it sounds like potentially there's some ways for a live to end that are driven by Instagram. Maybe there's a live that is inappropriate and like or spam or other kind of filter detects it and shuts it down. Or maybe there's, you didn't mention this is global, but still maybe there's some sort of global policy. Hey, like, um, this like conspiracy theory has come out. This is misinformation. Like, try to detect it, etc. I think there's like these different policy routes. I think we're almost there. It sounds like we're ending early, not user generated, not crashes, but there's new policies that can end a live. So I would just understand what those policies are, and then segment our ending sessions by those policies. So maybe like graphic content is one. Okay, do we see an increase in graphic content like AI detection? I assume it's mostly AI detection, or maybe by human moderators as well. Um, Maybe there's a policy around some new piece of information. Let's just go back to 2020, hashtag COVID is fake. Okay, we're trying to like detect like those sentiments or whatever it might be. So just understanding those different pillars, I think that would really help us like understand, okay, like
Mhm.
what's the new thing coming out that we're trying to protect
Mhm.
people against. Um, and then we can triage from there. And I think
Mhm.
at that point, it is a policy thing that's I think actually a lot harder than if it was a crash or like a bug. Those are usually the easiest to fix. User experience a little harder, but then policy, if we're seeing this like user initiated behavior change, that's hard. Um, Oh, I will say, like, this could be creator generated or it could be in the comments from viewers. So I think we have to look at content for both the video, what the creator is saying slash like posting in the comments, but what are the viewers also posting?
Mhm. Mhm.
Or if like viewers are joining the video and like doing something inappropriate.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
understand all that, and then I think like once we've identified what is that behavior that our policy prohibits against, um,
Sure.
you know, try to potentially like detect um, accounts that have a propensity to do that and like warn them, and maybe you have a cool down period where we prevent them from going live for some amount of time to kind of
Mhm.
let them literally cool down and let our user base kind of like stabilize. There's different like practices we could
Okay.
potentially put in place there.
So you speak with the policy and legal teams and you find out that there's a new policy where any live containing any AI or generated AI content will end early.
Okay.
So what do you do in response to that information?
Got it. Okay, so AI generated content ends early, um, and this is content in the video itself. Like the live viewer
Yes.
is somehow like manipulating the video.
Yes. So if the platform detects any generated AI content, then it will automatically end the live.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think okay. So this is all like focused on the creator side. Um, I think there's probably some messaging changes that we could do, even like a blast messaging to all users to help them understand this policy, potentially like warnings, especially to these accounts that have been in violation when they start lives before we let them start alive, just like give them a warning, kind of reinforce the policy. I would also look for if there's ways that we could like technologically detect these like artificial these AI generated content. So I don't know how it would be done right now, but if a user is actually manipulating their video, right? Like maybe they have like a filter on that we don't want them to use for whatever reason. Um, maybe there's like another app they have downloaded that's like piggybacking onto the Instagram live video app. Maybe we can detect those things even preemptively. Like, hey, I can tell we can tell you're like using this like AI generative app in tandem with live. You're not going to be able to go live until you kill that app or whatever because of this policy. So I think these kinds of warnings and preventive measures to prevent um, the users even from going live in the first place, because it feels like, going back to the initial problem and prompt, the number of viewers are going down. So I think it's very possible for us to say that users are watching these videos, they terminate quickly, and that's causing um, less, well, on both sides, supply and demand is causing creators frustration. So they're not posting anymore. And in turn, of course, then the viewers have less content to watch. So I think like being really straightforward and communicating appropriately with our creators from the get-go, and even preventing them from going live until we're confident that they're not going to get interrupted, that their video is not going to get closed, would be a great way to prevent that like friction for them, and hopefully create a better experience.
Perfect. Appreciate your thoughts, Titus.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you.
So this concludes the mock portion of the interview. So I'd love to understand, just give me a high level of how you think you did, and then I'll jump in with some feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, generally with these questions, I like to just understand some of the literal like shape of the curve and time period and whatnot. I think, I like how I went about that. I think that's a good start. Just gives you a high level picture. Things like sudden drops are more indicative of bugs versus like gradual changes, usually more behavior, etc. But so that was good. I think when I went into users, um, I could have jumped into the creator side a little bit earlier. I went really deep on the viewer side since the prompt specifically said viewers, but only kind of came to the supply side of the creators a little bit later. And I think, in the end, we still got to the conclusion, but I think it would have helped us kind of triage at a high level, talk about users a little bit, talk about creators and the supply side a little bit. And we would have been able to just like save a little bit of time had we jumped into the creator flow a little bit earlier. Um, Yeah, I think those are my main thoughts. I think there's always, I could have had I jumped into Creative Flow earlier. I think I would have asked those high level like geolocation questions, time of week, day questions in a different context. I would have asked them about the supply side. Ultimately, that wasn't the cause that we found, but it would have helped create like a holistic picture on the supply side, since that's where we saw the problem. And then probably just like speed, probably could have again save some time, maybe even like explain some of my thoughts a little faster. Maybe that would have given us more time at the end to talk about mitigation strategies a little bit more. Maybe you, as the interviewer, would have more follow-up questions there as well.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail right on the head with your analysis. I would say I don't think you were slow in your rationale or thinking, so I wouldn't say you needed to go faster there. But certainly a more we'll get into this in the feedback, but more hypothesis driven approach, especially with some of the data that you learned throughout the interview, probably would have helped you navigate the structure of the interview quicker. But let's get into and before I go into feedback, actually, so the last part at the end was just a brief: how would you react? What would you do? Right? This isn't necessarily a strategy question because that is such a
Yeah,
complex question, right? So when you make policy
totally.
changes that actually impact your some of the business metrics that you have, how do you resolve that? And that's not the point of this question, but it is interesting to get your initial thoughts. Okay, so let's go through the
Perfect.
positives first and then some things that you can improve on. So, number one, I thought you did a good job of understanding the viewer side of the ecosystem, and ultimately, with more prompting, you listed at the beginning all the other sides of the ecosystem, but you ended up exploring them as well, which I thought was great. Number two, I thought you did a great job drilling down into the root cause, and you actually found it, which is rare in these types of interviews. Oftentimes, there might not even be an actual question, or I'm
Yeah,
sorry, there might not be an actual answer, right? And the interviewer is just going to say no the entire time to see how you react, as well as how you would deal with duress. And so I was playing more of a stoic interviewer character and a more
sure.
tough one to get. But you might run into situations like that, right? But I thought it was great that
Okay.
you actually found out the root cause. Number three is that I like how you, especially later on, not as much in the beginning, but later on, you became a little bit more hypothesis driven. And that helped you get to your answer and helped me understand why you're asking me certain questions in a more efficient way, right? Because I
Yeah,
think one thing that people often do during these questions or these types of execution diagnostic questions is just ask a bunch of questions, ask any question under the sun, almost as if they were going through a checklist and not thinking critically about what they just learned. And I think, especially as the interview went on, you were much stronger about telling me the rationale behind why you're asking questions or the route you want to take. So good job on that. Okay,
thank you.
some things that you could work on. Number one is, although you had a great structure at the beginning, I think throughout the interview, I was getting a bit lost because you would ask more clarifying questions around the metrics or already do a deep dive at the beginning. You would go back to the user flow at different points. And so I think I'll get to this in my next point, but if you're able to keep to the structure as well as signpost, right? So after you're done with a section, tell me, okay, here are all the things that I just learned. Let me summarize based on all this data so far. It's leading me in XYZ direction. Here's what I'm going to go to next. Does that sound good with you? That would help me as an interviewer follow your structure a lot more effectively. Okay, so that's
That
one,
makes sense.
signpost and summarize more. Number two is you didn't go through the entire user flow. And this is something I was trying to prompt you to do throughout the entire user interview, right? I think you got stuck on the fact that it was viewers and number of views and forget everything that can contribute to the number of view starts going down, right? So it's
Yeah,
not just initiating or entry points, it could be anything within that user flow. And I think that would be everyone's initial instinct, right? I probably would have gone there too, but without going through the user flow. So what I mean by that, right, is from the viewer perspective, it would be entering the live, then experiencing the live and interacting with the audience and all the different reactions, comments, etc., that you could do, and then the ending of the live. Right. These last two parts, you didn't really, in the middle part, you didn't touch on at all, really. But the last two parts in general, you didn't really touch on until you learned more information. But I think you could have gotten to the answer quicker in the beginning if during your user flow section, you talked about, okay, this is the journey of a viewer, this is the journey of a creator, this is the journey of maybe an advertiser. I probably would have shooed you away from that one. But if you ask more about data within that user flow and maybe told me about the funnel you would construct or the visualization, that might have gotten you to where you needed to be a lot quicker.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
then, awesome. And then the third thing is I would use this question. This is more an advanced tip, but I would use this question as an opportunity to demonstrate how you would actually act as a PM. So what do I mean by that, right? So number one, I think showing that you're hypothesis driven is great. But two, tell me about the tools that you would use or the stakeholders you would talk to, right? So I would talk to data science to get this. I would look at the user logs. I would comb through Twitter to see if there's any like global news or blah, 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 blah. I would talk to the legal and policy team, which is what I was trying to get you to say, right? When I was like, how would you find out this information? So to the
Yeah,
extent you can tell me how you would actually operate as a PM in uncovering this information, because a PM is not a lone wolf role, right? You're going to be talking to a bunch of these different stakeholders. You're going to be going through all these data sources, whether it be your internal logs, mixed panel, et cetera, whatever you use. Tell me more about how you act as a PM when diagnosing this problem.
got it. Yeah, that makes
Awesome.
sense.
Yeah, so those are my main tips for you. But overall, I think you did a really fantastic job. You discovered the problem. You told me how you were going to solve it, and you were relatively hypothesis driven. So I think it was a strong performance overall.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, thank you for your
Awesome.
time. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for joining us, Titus, and thank you to everyone watching. If you enjoyed this interview, visit tryexponent.com to view our product management interview course, where you'll have access to our library of interview questions, expert coaching, and peer-to-peer mock interviews where you can practice yourself. Good luck on your next interview, and thanks for watching.